Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, names that once made Hollywood believe in lasting love, are now back in the headlines. But this time, not for a shared project or philanthropic cause. Instead, it's a lawsuit that's expected to send shockwaves through the entertainment world. Nearly a decade after their separation, and years after their divorce was finalized, their story is still unfolding. And this time, the focal point is a bottle of wine, a symbol of everything unresolved between two people who once called each other soulmates. According to an exclusive report from Us Weekly, the legal battle between Pitt and Jolie over the ownership of Chateau Miraval, a vineyard and wine estate in the south of France, is entering a tense phase. Court documents reveal that both parties are preparing for a trial expected to last at least 15 days. But this isn't merely a property dispute. It's a collision of values, of memories, and of two sharply different interpretations of what was once considered sacred. Brad Pitt has described the upcoming case as, quote, complex, citing not only the involvement of international stakeholders, but also the emotional undertow that has never quite receded. In his 2022 lawsuit, Pitt accused Jolie of unilaterally selling her stake in Miraval to the Stoli Group, owned by Russian billionaire Yuri Shefler, without his consent. He claims this move violated their prior understanding and, worse, threatened the future of what he once envisioned passing down to their children. To Pitt, Miraval was never just a business asset. It was a shared dream. When he and Jolie bought the estate in 2008, they spoke of it as a sanctuary, a piece of their family's heart. Wedding photos, family vacations, the quiet joys of parenting, all had roots in that sun-drenched estate. But what once stood as a symbol of unity has now turned into a metaphor for a fractured bond, where each side is telling a different version of the same story. According to Pitt, after their 2016 separation, both parties agreed to retain their respective stakes in Miraval, with Pitt even offering to buy out Jolie's share. But negotiations reportedly collapsed when Jolie refused to sign a mutual non-disparagement clause. And this is where the emotional undercurrent intensifies. Jolie alleges that Pitt used the clause as a shield to, quote, cover up abuse. The words are few, but their implications are seismic, rekindling old accusations and reigniting wounds that may never fully heal. Jolie, meanwhile, has denied all of Pitt's allegations. Her camp asserts that there was no legal agreement requiring Pitt's approval for the sale. They argue that divesting from Miraval was not an act of retaliation or sabotage, but simply a decision to close a chapter she no longer wished to inhabit. For Jolie, it was a release from a past riddled with conflict, a step forward in reclaiming both emotional and financial autonomy. A particularly notable player in the unfolding drama is the third party, the Stoli Group and its Russian owner, Yuri Shefler. Pitt accuses Shefler of executing a, quote, hostile takeover, suggesting that acquiring Jolie's share was part of a larger plan to wrest control of Miraval entirely. This case is no longer just a domestic dispute. It's now intertwined with questions of corporate ethics and international power plays, where a family's heartbreak is dragged into the machinery of global business interests. Amid all the noise, one name surfaces quietly but persistently in every discussion. Knox Jolie-Pitt, the only biological son of Brad and Angelina. Now 16, Knox has grown up between two worlds. One bathed in Hollywood glamour, the other shadowed by battles that never seem to end. Ironically, Knox and his siblings, once the very reason Pitt and Jolie held onto Miraval, are now silent figures caught in the crossfire. The unspoken question looms. In this war over ownership, who is truly safeguarding what's best for the children? Back when Pitt and Jolie were still a couple, Miraval was more than land. It was a landscape of love, of harvests, of a vision built by two hands intertwined. But today, the name Miraval no longer evokes romance. It stands for a war over control, legacy, and the final word in a story that refuses to conclude. As of now, a trial date has yet to be set. But the legal groundwork is in motion. Two legal teams, two ideologies, two diverging memories of a shared estate, all preparing for what's expected to be a 15-day battle before a jury. The most frightening outcome isn't who wins or loses. It's the realization that some cracks can no longer be sealed. Hollywood has seen its fair share of high-profile divorces. But the Pitt-Jolie saga feels different. This isn't just about fame or fortune. It's about two people once revered as ideal, now unraveling before our eyes. And we keep watching, Not out of voyeurism, but because their downfall echoes the private fractures we all fear but rarely admit. In the end, Miraval may be just a winery, a transaction, a legal dispute. But on a deeper level, it is the symbol of something far more intimate that has collapsed: trust. And in the world of stars, when the spotlight fades, all that may be left is the bitter taste of a wine no one wants to raise a glass to anymore. Hollywood has seen Brad Pitt in every light: the charming rebel of Fight Club, the cold investigator of C7 On, the complex father in The Tree of Life, and the husband of Angelina Jolie, half of a golden couple once hailed as a modern-day myth. But there's one role Brad never truly played in public, at least not within a scripted frame: the role of a man falling apart, losing control, and quietly starting over from below zero, the role of himself in his own life. In September 2016, Angelina Jolie filed for divorce. To the world, it was breaking news. To Brad Pitt, it was a brutal awakening, what he would later describe as a bittersweet spiritual reboot. Just days before the filing, something serious happened on a private flight from France to Los Angeles. Court documents and later reports allege that Pitt, under the influence of alcohol, had an explosive argument and a physical altercation involving one of the children. The FBI and the Los Angeles Department of Child and Family Services launched an investigation. The conclusion: no charges filed, no evidence of abuse found. But inside the family, everything had already cracked. "You have to understand," Pitt would later admit, "I had lost everything. I lost my wife, I lost my family. And worse, I had lost myself." Somewhere in a once warm home, where wedding photos used to hang and children's laughter once echoed, sat a man alone. No crew, no cameras, no noise, just silence. And a bottle, his old familiar companion. In a 2017 interview with GQ, Pitt confessed, "I can't remember a day since I left college where I wasn't boozing or smoking something." It wasn't a confession meant to impress. It was a cold, clean truth, a reminder that fame doesn't always make you stronger. Sometimes it just teaches you how to hide your cracks better. Back in the 1990s, following his breakout success with A River Runs Through It, Pitt slipped into a quiet depression. He retreated from the spotlight, spending his nights on the couch, numbing himself with weed. "I turned into a donut," he said once, his own way of describing that slow, sinking disappearance of self. And while the world admired his cool, his beauty, his effortless charisma, he envied those who lived anonymous, unguarded lives. It wasn't until a visit to Morocco, where he saw crushing poverty up close, that something shifted. "I just quit," he recalled. "I got off the couch. But one habit remained: alcohol." Brad Pitt didn't drink to celebrate. He drank to not feel. And when he began building a family with Jolie, he managed to quit everything except alcohol. "You realize a lot of it is pacifiers," he admitted. "I was running from emotions." By 2016, drinking wasn't a habit. It was a problem, a trigger, the spark that lit the flame of the family's unraveling. And when Jolie walked away, Pitt, perhaps for the first time, stood still and faced himself. He turned to a 12-step program. At first, he was shy, quiet, sitting in the back of a room full of men telling truths they'd never said aloud. But slowly, he realized this was the first room in his life where he could be just a man, not a movie star. On the Armchair Expert podcast, Pitt shared, "I almost went down on my knees. I opened up. I tried everything. It was a tough time. I needed to reboot." In that space, he listened. To the broken, the brave, the men who had burned down everything they loved because they didn't know how to hold pain. They were honest. Strangely, courageously honest, he told the New York Times. And because they could be honest, I started being honest too. What struck him most wasn't the advice, it was the absence of judgment. For once, no one expected him to be perfect. No one asked him to be Brad Pitt. They just asked him to be present, even if that meant broken. Then came a quiet, moving moment in 2020. Pitt stood on stage, accepting a Best Supporting Actor award from the National Board of Review. The man handing him the trophy? Bradley Cooper. Pitt looked at him and said, voice trembling, "I got sober because of this guy. And every day since has been happier." No sermon. No moral tale. Just a moment of truth between two men who had crawled out of their emotional wreckage with bare hands. Today, Brad Pitt has been sober for nearly a decade. He doesn't talk about it often, he doesn't preach, he doesn't write self-help books. But in every interview, in every grounded glance, you can sense it. He's no longer living to avoid pain. He's living to feel. And the emotion he once feared the most is now what keeps him anchored. In a Hollywood buzzing with scandals, lawsuits, and fleeting romances, Brad Pitt remains a figure who draws attention. But perhaps what's most admirable about him now is not a role, not his looks, not his legacy, but his quiet courage to face himself, consistently, patiently, without applause. Because in the end, sobriety isn't just about not drinking. Sobriety is about looking straight at the ugliest parts of yourself and deciding they don't get to define you anymore.